Good morning, Rob.
Hey, good morning, Evan. How are we doing?
Doing great. Excited to once again make some stuff with you.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
So, just so that everyone, I don't know if you've seen our previous episode, but Rob is about to share an idea, a concept with me that I have not actually heard before. And we're going to do some questioning. I'm going to ask some different coaching like questions following a framework that we'll tell you more about. And then in real time, we're going to build a software tool that hopefully solves his problem using AI.
And to add to that, just to complicate it a little bit more, is I already tried, I attempted by using a lot of the prompts that you've shared in your talks and in the frameworks that you've made. I used those to try my best to make my version of it. And of course, you have a lot more experience with this. So I'm going to tell you generally what I tried to do. You're going to make it in a much shorter amount of time. And then I will probably be very frustrated with how much better yours is than mine, and we get to compare what the results were.
That's right. And again, no frustration. It's all fun here.
You, you underestimate me, Evan. I'm easily frustrated.
It's not a competition, as I sometimes tell other people after I've won at something.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to tell me the situation that has inspired whatever idea you have in mind for this tool.
Great. So the beginning of every week, I use the Ready Group Go generator to get students in new spaces, and I always find myself as a teacher forgetting to just give them that time to turn and connect and like just have a good conversation with one another. And so usually it'll be 10 minutes into class and I'll say, everyone go ahead and turn and talk about this particular thing. And then it clicks and it hits me and I go, ah. And I'll say, and make sure to check in with one another and ask how their weekend was or something like that. And it just feels like a forethought. And so the situation for me is finding myself wanting to get my students turning and just having conversations, but not really facilitating that in a really clear way.
And so you're getting into the problem then with this idea that you want students to, when they first get into a group, take that time to talk to each other and engage with each other and know, maybe like connect on a genuine level before they start with the work.
It goes further with that. With the problem, maybe as a teacher, I will find myself saying, turn and talk. And maybe it's a shy boy next to a girl who wants nothing to do with talk with him. And then by just saying, hey, everyone, turn and talk about your weekend, I'm not really facilitating a healthy structure for like how to have that conversation. And we like to assume that ninth graders could easily do that, but many cannot, definitely. And so giving them something to talk about, giving them a specific time, have any of those right at my hands. And so I find myself just saying, turn and check in with one another, which they'll take 5 seconds to go, hey, what's up? You good? Yeah. And then they turn away from each other. So of course I'm walking around going, "Hey, what are you guys talking about?" And they go, We're done." And I'll say, "Okay." So giving them something of substance to actually turn and connect with.
Great. And let's talk about your aspirations for this. What does this look like when you've solved this problem that you described correctly?
For
What are you
me,
expecting to see?
yeah, I for me in the moment, if I'm rushing into my room, I drop my son off in the morning, I get in, I get all my stuff out, students are walking in. I'm not thinking of something to get them turning and talking about. And so for me, an aspiration, I think two things would be giving, having prompts ready to go to just give them visually a prompt for them to look at and think about and process maybe on their own before turning and talking with one another just to get those creative juices and thoughts flowing. And then also possibly time frames for them to visually see where that's how much time they have, whether it's independent reflection or turning and talking with one another. And that way I could make it very clear, you have 2 minutes to have this conversation, or you have 2 minutes to independently reflect. So let's go ahead and use all of that time. And then they have something to really chew on visually, which I found a lot with my um, one thing I push with the Ready Group Go conversation is around making sure that the talking points or discussions are visual up on the screen so they have something to turn and look to and come back to.
So this idea that you're coming in and you don't necessarily have the time, because there's so many things that teachers have to do at the beginning of a class. Having an easy way to structure those conversations when you've gotten them into the groups and they know either through routine or simply from visual instructions what they're supposed to do, and you don't have to spend your brain power necessarily at the start of class thinking, okay, how do I prepare this? How do I set it up so that they're going to wait a certain amount of time, think on their own, and then be able to visually have that conversation and know how long they're going to have to potentially have an awkward conversation, because it is weird sometimes being in a new group. So just very clear expectations visually of what they're supposed to be doing, how long they're going to be doing it, and also knowing when and for how long they're going to be talking to somebody new in their group.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So, with all of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting together a prompt, like thinking about how an app might be able to solve this problem, thinking about your the situation, thinking about the problem, thinking about your aspirations for what this looks like. Because the results, this is really where I come in, because I know a lot about structuring these prompts and how to construct the prompt so that when I put it into a tool like Google's AI Studio, it's able to come up with a tool in a short amount of time. So I'm going to piece together this prompt. I'm going to take some time and we're going to fast forward just a bit so that you can see the end result of this. And then, I don't know, maybe I can have sips of coffee along the way while you're all waiting with bated breath, hopefully.
All right.
All right. So, Rob, I'll show what I did. These are the notes that I took while you were speaking. And I'm using something called the Spark framework. This is a framework from Dr. Sabba Quidwai, which is more oriented toward when you're trying to collaborate with AI and train a team member. She recommends that you use this as to coach AI the way you would bring a team member on board to solve this problem for you. And so I like using this structure, this framework, when designing apps because it really puts both me and the person I'm speaking to in this position to talk about the bigger context. Last time we talked a lot about, you had shared how surprised you were how much context I put into the
Yeah.
conversation, into that first prompt. And I really think that's important for the language model to do a good job of designing what this app actually is and what it can be, because it doesn't know the teacher's context. It's not trained with that information. And so if we
Well,
can give
and
it
I
some of
like
that information.
I like too that I thought you were just taking notes separately off the page, but I love that you were including those notes in the actual prompt. That was surprising to me, but to say, okay, what is the context that I want to include? And you're actually using that framework in the prompt. No, here's the situation. Here's the problem. And for me to be able to read your ideas back to me and go, yeah, no, that's exactly what I was just discussing. And to pass that on to the I think that could be incredibly helpful.
Agreed. So I put situation, which is the S in Spark. I talked about the problem, and this was you talking about the challenges here. the aspiration, like what this looks like when you've solved the problem. And then in the results, this is where I put a lot of my own writing, is simply saying, hey, this is what I am thinking might be the solution to this problem. I got this idea of a live stream. Like, we know some of our students actually watch these things. So I'm imagining at the start of the live stream, while it's counting down to the beginning, there are things to think about. And so before we get to the meat of the class, we have this very visual, exciting, screen filling app that kind of gets people thinking in unique ways. And so I
Love it.
said, there's a prompt that shows up. There's a countdown bar in the bottom. It says individually thinking about this problem. I could even put that in here. And then I'm thinking that the teacher hits a button and then we go into conversation mode. And the prompt is still there. It's easy to see, but it's clear that it's different. And so we have a countdown. It could be a timer, it could be a visual indicator. The idea that you don't have to be looking at the screen to know how much time you have. And then when time is up, simply saying, all right, let's get together and share. And I was thinking, once you're at that stage, maybe you want to get some of the notes up. Like, maybe there are some trends that students are thinking about that you want to note and get down. And I said, where are these prompts coming from? Maybe some generated prompts, like things that are just pre-populated in there. You as a teacher could add in your own. You could store these in local storage. You might come up with an interesting prompt that you want to use again. And maybe you have the ability to say, this prompt worked really well with this group. I want to use that again. And
I love the idea of having it one day, coming back to it the next as
Mhm.
a post reflection now that they've had the full class discussion. Now that you're saying this, I'm loving that idea of visually making it clear, because there's three things we do. It's the individual reflection, it's the turn and talk with your small group, and then there's the full class. And I think there's benefits to each three. And I love seeing that as a progress or like a timeline almost, and to be able to go back to that and say, let's circle back to some independent reflection over that at the beginning of the next. Let's have a different group that you can turn and have that conversation with and see how it's a
Sure.
conversation kind of unravels. There's a thread and it's organic.
Totally. It's nice to be able to make these notes for what works well, number one. Maybe those notes are for students. Maybe it's for you as a teacher. Private things to just say, hey, this really worked well and here's why. But also for the purpose of just reusability, like using this later, this might be something we want to talk about again. There's one last thing that I'm putting in, just knowing how sometimes language models respond. I don't want it to use AI in the app to start with. Like, sometimes if you use that term about generated prompts, it's, oh, you want to use AI in the app. And so explicitly for now saying we don't want this
Sure.
is a good idea. Okay. Generate. So the last part of this prompt, I had it above, but I'm going to say it again. A single page HTML file that lets me run this app in a browser from my computer. And so this last line, as we had before, is a really nice way to just make sure that it does what we want. So I'm going to take all of that. I have not put this in, so you are seeing this in real time. I'm going to select Gemini 2.5 Pro. I'm going to go down to our chat window and paste all of that in. And I'm going to hit run.
And what were you typing on before you pasted it into AI Studio? Was that just a notes page?
Yeah, this is Visual Studio. This is
Okay.
normally where people write code. And so I just have kind of a markdown file. Markdown is this way that you can make really nice formatted text. I didn't use any markdown here, but for example, you can, if you go to something and you give it a single pound sign or hashtag sign, it makes that a heading. And so it knows that, oh, this is going to be a section. And
Do you
so
prefer
we took
that
all of
just
this.
to organize it
Yeah,
and save
exactly.
it?
Exactly.
So you have that tab right there, and so you can come back to it.
That's right.
That's cool.
Okay. And so what's interesting about 2.5 Pro is it tells you some of the reasoning steps of the model as it's going through. You can
I love
see
reading
how
those.
it steps through. Yeah, it's fascinating seeing how the language model goes through doing the problem. And what's neat is like I've read your notes and I can see the clear flow. And it took all of that information and pulled it into a sequence of steps in the app. And so it tells you what to do. It says just copy and paste the entire block in. So I'm going to copy all of this code, and there is a lot of it. Wow. I'm going to paste it into this file here. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to hit go live. And what that does is actually runs a web server so that I can actually see the result. So here we have it. And so it has a setup tab and a display tab. The first thing is about setting timers. So let's say 60 seconds of reflection time. You had said maybe 2 minutes, something fairly quick, is all we might want for students to just be thinking about whatever prompt. So let's do 2 minutes, 120 seconds, and we can choose a prompt. What's a minor, unimportant mystery you'd love to know the answer to? So gives us, so a drop down
Interesting.
list. You can choose
I love
from.
that
If
you
you could
can
design
see
a new
everything all
Pringles
at
flavor.
once.
Yeah, yeah. What movie or TV show would be 10 times better if it was a musical? These were pretty good.
I do
I
like
don't know.
those.
What's the best smell in the world? Anyway, so start activity and switch to display. Let's see what that looks like. So thinking on your own,
Oh,
countdown
wow.
timer
I
in the
love that it
bottom.
guides them too.
Look at that sweet gradient going along the side.
Yeah. So this is, I think it'd be really interesting whether you want them to just do some meditative, like breathing, thinking on their own, or do you with a notepad and pen, daily reflections, daily, okay, here's the question of the day. Sit down. Let's just do a 1 minute quiet. And then when it finishes, I'm interested in knowing how it switches into the turn and talk. But I love that.
Yeah, me
Think
too.
on your own dot. Love that. Turn and
Cool.
talk.
There was a quick little beep when it switched over, and there's a visual change. Like it's cool to just see how it interpreted those instructions we gave it.
I would be fascinated
Um,
too with a teacher who's trying to facilitate a turn and talk discussion to say, what are some tips or kind of guided, the idea of who talks first or for how
mhm.
long. For example, if there's 2 minutes and there's three people in a group, how much time should each person be able to share? If one person only shares for 5 seconds and the other person shares for a minute and a half, it would be really fascinating to turn this into not just the guide of individual turn and talk and class discussion, but also like some guided discussion points or tips or something.
It's true that sometimes these discussions with teenagers, for sure, they want to be done. And so, is there a way to take this and push them to dive deeper? Do we want that on the screen, or is that the role of the teacher themselves nudging things forward?
And I'm thinking when
And
I'm
maybe,
walking around, I try this a lot with my students who will walk by and say, hey, I noticed you guys are done. Because a lot of the behavior issues that you may have is right at the end of those discussions where they have 30 seconds left, they end early, and now they're turning and bothering other people in other discussions, or they're off task, they're doing whatever. What could we do to give where I can point to the screen and say, look, it wants you to, and instead of just a question, it could have some tips as far as having who starts first or whatever. Time's up. Let's
sure,
share. What's the
sure.
best smell in the world? I love the let's share piece. Type key ideas from student conversations here.
This is what we asked for. It does seem a little bit weird now, taking notes on what's the best smell in the world. I don't know what I would want to record there.
Yeah. But I love,
Maybe that isn't public. Maybe that's not a public thing. I want the ability to have it public because maybe there is something that you do want some ideas about if it's a bell ringer activity.
yeah. So one thing I'm noticing here is you brought up that idea of sharing or saving? And would that be at this stage, would there be a button or something that says, okay, save the or highlight or star? I'm thinking of that even just in my Gmail, where you can star a particular
Mm.
email and look back over all, or favorites.
Yeah. And so let's add these in as additional things that we might ask you to think about. Like for
Sure.
me, it might be cool to be able to star or favorite. Are you talking about student responses or are you talking about prompts?
Great question. Because again, are we taking notes? Do we want, I guess we could give the option of taking notes, or is it just simply we like this discussion just for simplicity's sake? Maybe we just want to show the question again, and it forces the students to think about main ideas that were brought up in the previous discussion.
Sure. I'm also wondering about a button to optionally skip ahead. I was thinking to the next
Oh,
stage. It again gets at the purpose of the activity. Do you want to really push the conversation to keep going?
yeah.
Or if you really want them to think for 60 seconds, is it the teacher's role to push ahead? Or is there something that this app can do to make it so that, again, we're stretching students to think more? And I
Yep.
might put this in this prompt just to say we want to push students to think longer and discuss longer. So, is there a way for the app to help with both of these?
I'm interested in this idea of asking it, is it possible to? It forces AI to give you an idea that maybe you weren't aware of, or where at least it forces you to look at their solution and say, does that work? Is that doable? Or maybe I like this part, but I don't like this part. It's again, it's that idea of a partnership that feels really nice.
Totally. And this is where I want to get to the last element of Dr. Saba's framework, the K, putting in Kismet. This is the idea of feel free to be creative, think differently, and throw in some element of surprise in the next version. And again, having this explicitly in the prompt makes it so that large language models tend to come up with more interesting responses. So let's throw that in and see if we ask it to make a new version, and we'll see what it comes up with.
A lot of times I'm learning too with this text at the beginning. I used to always skip it and just go right to the bottom of the code and copy and paste it. It just as a creator, when I'm reading it back, I'm able to start picking out things that I never spotted before, or it seems to emphasize a thing that I didn't consider, or it'll even throw out ideas thinking that's what I wanted, and I'll go, oh, where did that come from? And so I'm learning to really take my time if I am going to use AI as a thinking partner to actually credit it in regards to looking at the ideas that it has, hearing it, and saying, what can I take from that?
Oh, let's see. Prompt favoriting. So it went to the prompts, so making it so that those rise to the top. Deeper thinking and discussion. So halfway through the think time, it has a twist appears, like a follow up question to challenge early finishers. And also halfway through the talk time, there's a random conversation deepener, which is cool. A
Ooh.
random chance. Ooh, it's adding a bonus round. Interesting.
To go a little further if you'd like. I love the
Sure. So
levels of
yeah. All right. Let's paste that in and
excited,
let's look
Evan.
at the new version. This is V2. It actually changed the title.
Oh
Um,
man.
just so that we can see some of this a little faster. Let's do 10 seconds of reflection time, 20 seconds. Let's do 20 and 20. Yeah. If animals could talk, what species would be the rudest? So it has
These are so good.
interesting.
I love it.
So you can add your own, which is cool. So
Did you
start
see the
activity.
star? Oh, you missed the
Yeah.
star.
No, I saw it. I saw it.
All
It's
right,
good.
think on your own. If animals could talk, which species would be the rudest? So whether it's just and this could
Huh.
even be by having the shorter time, maybe you say, I don't want you to write it. I just want you to take 10, 20 to think of it on your own. Okay, now go ahead and
Sure.
turn and talk. They're conversing, do this. I like the skip ahead.
It has these conversation deepeners. I like the idea. It's
I like
interesting.
that it pops up halfway through just because there's
Yeah.
the initial turn, but ooh, this popped up, let's continue, which kind of solves that problem of the students who are finishing early or things like that.
Yeah. It's a cool concept. And then these ideas of what surprising, insightful, or brilliant ideas did you hear? I like that because it's giving students, it's not just say, what did you hear? But it's, was there anything surprising? Were there cool ideas? Like helping students think in the way we're looking for them to think.
And I love this concept too with in-class discussions. I'm really trying to push not just when I ask my students to share, I never say, what did you have to say? I'll always use the phrase, what did your group talk about? What's something that
Mm.
your group said? And they're always way more likely to say, oh, so and so was just saying about how, or one thing we talked about was. And I love how we could shape this discussion to be about, as a group, what was discussed, and they find more value in that.
Yeah. And getting back to the philosophy of even doing this conversation, again, the goal is to make it so that at the start of the class, you have some gelling in the groups
Right.
so that there's some connection between them before you get to the learning, the potentially academic learning or whatever activities you've set up for the day. That's neat to say we're devoting deliberate time to have some fun and get to connect and do so in a way that hopefully makes the collaboration that's about to happen even more productive.
And what I'm hearing too and seeing is this is such an incredible launch pad. Like you've done 2 prompts now. That's it. And this is it's almost like if this was a timeline of a project, we're still just at the very beginning because now it's opened up all of these other possibilities that we didn't even see before with my design class or with the entrepreneurship course that I teach with high schoolers is like getting those ideas right in front of you to then give you opinions about them, to get them thinking, as opposed to just simply putting it down on paper. So I'm really excited to see how literally 2 prompts has sparked this much discussion and ideas that we could continue on for over time.
Yeah, and this gets to my view of what makes this kind of tool so powerful is that when we're just talking about ideas, oh, we could do this, we could do that, until you start building, until you actually see it in action, sometimes you don't know what's going to be a good idea and what isn't. And so it's the importance of
Yeah.
building a prototype, trying it out, and the power of teachers to build these things themselves and try it out with students. And they might really benefit from seeing teachers go through the design process and experiment and try to make things themselves that turn the classroom into a more fun, a more engaging, and dare I say, productive. I mean, we
Yeah.
ultimately want them to learn, but trying different things to try to get there is really the important part here. I would
Absolutely.
love to see what you put together, Rob. So I'm
Are you
going to
sure?
stop sharing my
I
screen.
was hearing you say that, being like, man, this is a perfect wrap up to this episode. And then I'm going to show you what I did and maybe we'll throw it off. But yeah, I can jump on and share with you really quick. I'm really excited about that. There's so much here that you did in just those 2 prompts that I can't wait to be able to see how it applies to what I did. So I thought about this idea of categories for conversations. So I've been using CodePen.io. So I still use the AI Studio and then I just drop it into this little box here and it just shows me a live version. So I thought of 3 different categories just around interests, feelings, experiences. I use the CSS for Ready Group Go, so you'll notice some colors and fonts in here. But I just pictured a teacher going, what am I vibing with? Do I want to do it on feelings today? So they click on it. And then just now I'm embarrassed because I think I like the simplicity. I love the drop down feature for yours. But then I thought about, is this a first grade class? Is it a fifth grade or 12th grade? Is this IB history? Do I want to go on a deeper where it talks about global issues? Do I want to get more into values or dilemmas?
Yeah, I just want to say I really like that idea of saying, what are we talking about today? Are we serious? Are we surface level?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
levels, I don't see as, are we first grade? Are we eighth grade? Like,
Sure.
we want students to engage. Sometimes it's something silly. Sometimes it really is what's going on in the world and how are you feeling
Mhm.
about it? I like that a lot.
So it jumps over here, and I thought it would be interesting, like you did, with this idea of a timer kind of next to it. And then my pop-up was a little box that says stuck, try this, and then it goes a little bit further for the example. And then again, with your timeline, it's here are the three parts to the discussion. It's individual, it's turn and talk, and it's class. At the end here, it just says find one surprising thing. And this is the version of your full class, which I like yours a lot more. Um, and that kind of simplifies the screen. But basically, I down here, I you can either start over or you can just go to the next one. Here's another question. You
Really like
start
these
over
questions.
here, and that's it. It's just like interests, deeper dialogue. This it gets into like the art and media we consume, cultures and global perspectives. So to go a little bit deeper, then I can go ahead and
Did you
here.
write these prompts?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think there was a version though. I don't know why it's not on here. I was working on this idea of a surprise me button, and I don't know why that newest version isn't here. I don't think I saved it last. But underneath here, there was a surprise me, like with the Google, I'm feeling lucky. So in
Mhm.
here, you could click I'm feeling lucky or surprise me, and it would just take them to any of the questions, which I thought was really fun. I showed it to a student and they gave me that feedback. They're like, yeah, but what if you just want to get crazy and just pick anyone and not think of which one? And then we turned it more into a carousel where you could just jump to another question without thinking of which category or anything like that. I think that was, yeah, the final there. If you live one day from your past, which one would it be? Why?
Awesome. And again, I love those levels of discussion. I love the ability to just, again, if you're stuck, here's something that you can put in. We came up with that, or maybe, I don't know, did you nudge that? Maybe you nudged that in your conversation with me, trying to
I
push me
think
towards this, but it's a really good idea.
but it came from the problem, which I really love that we started with this framework, the idea of what is the problem. And one of the problems, I think I mentioned the idea of students finishing early, and then it becomes a behavior management or classroom management or whatever we want to call it, when
Mm.
we could literally just give them more things to talk about or push them to go further. Because as we know, some of our maybe more the students who may have that behavior issue or something, it's maybe just because they're not challenged enough and they wanted something to go a little bit deeper and they didn't have it. And so I think based off of that kind of framework, we both were looking for that same solution.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like moving forward from here, it's interesting if you could take everything that we've both put together and describe this app. We could use AI to essentially take both of these and put it together in like I guess I'm still I really love the level 1, level 2, level 3. All of the prompts that AI came up with for mine, they're silly. Definitely interesting. Definitely going to prompt some conversation. There are things students have never been asked before. But when we have a bell ringer or a do now or a warm up activity, ideally you are setting something up for the rest of the lesson. And it's just so interesting to think about how you could choose between everything that mine came up with, which I think might be at the level 1 category, but also have this repository of things that you put together that really push the lesson forward and get students to engage on something related to the lesson. I just think there's so many positive elements of both of these that come together.
Yeah, you can get into content, whether it's just big math concepts or history, and teachers could click on one that jumps out to them, or they could just be more general, more SEL, more Now I'm thinking of advisory. I'm thinking of how much we're really pushing
Mm.
SEL and how much we want to really push students to have those conversations. And yet, what are the tools that we're giving teachers in the classroom, especially for something like advisory, where, a bunch of students come in for 20 minutes a day and you're supposed to just come up with something on the spot and guide that. And you're sitting there going, I'm still my head's spinning from the last class. And now you have this tool to just immediately jump on. And that could even be an option too, is like putting in your own question instead of, so that way maybe the admin at a school says, hey, everyone, go ahead and put this question into this site and then run through that process with them. And you have your question ready to go, your custom question that you can then save or favorite for later.
Just bringing it back full circle to what we said in the very beginning is this idea that the teacher is not having to come up with this necessarily. So if it is coming from admin or it's coming from the app, you can just show up, you put this on the screen, it's ready to go. And then you, as the human in the room, can focus on the connections that are going on in that room.
Love that.
Helping people
Absolutely.
talk to each other, using it as taking the temperature of the room. Are we not in a position where we can be silly? Is everyone really stressed about something? So just again, this is taken care of so that the teacher can be professional in the room and do what they do best.
And you're talking about this particular project that we're looking at, but I think this kind of we step back and we see it for the reason that we're doing this morning is this idea that it's not just a cold AI. We're putting our own feelings and experiences into this, not as even just one teacher, but two teachers with a whole background, putting this whole idea of situations and problems and aspirations and making it a very human tool. And I love that you bring up this idea of let that do the work so we can be busy building those connections. And I don't think that just has to be about grouping and collaboration. That's with every tool that we create.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love it.
All right. If you haven't checked out the Spark framework from Dr. Sabba Quidwai, check it out. We'll link it below in the notes, in the show notes. Definitely check it out as a way to shift the way you look at prompting. It changes things from do this for me to help me accomplish this task the way you would with trying to train a team member to help you out with something that you're trying to do as part of your work. Awesome. All right, Rob. Thanks so much.
Evan, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to make the next tool with you.
Sounds good. See you next time.
Ciao.